This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
Did you know Fast Growing Trees is America's largest and most trusted online nursery with thousands of trees and plants and over 2 million happy customers? Whether you're planting fruit trees, adding privacy, brightening things up with flowers, or bringing in house plants, Fast Growing Trees has it all. Even better, they can help you find options that are right for your climate, your space, and lifestyle. Click Order Grow. Every plant arrives healthy with the Alive and Thrive guarantee straight to your door. So if you're ready to get planting, this is the moment. Right now, they have great deals on spring planting essentials, up to half off on select plants. And listeners to our show get 20% off their first purchase when using the code WWO at checkout. That's an additional 20% off. Better plants and better growing at fastgrowingtrees.com using the code WWO at checkout. Fastgrowingtrees.com, code WWO. Now's the perfect time to plant. Let's grow together. Use WWO to save today. Offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions apply. Go to growingfasttrees.com for details.
Hello, and thank you for listening to this week's On the Verge Weekly, the minor league report that we do every week. This was a much easier intro when we did it daily, but I do appreciate the weekly format better. I think there's more things we could do with it. And speaking of which, I'm going to try something new this season, this week, and see how it goes. Oh, I'm your host, Bob Phelan. Did I say that? Anyway, it's been a rough week over at the Phelan household with kids trying to learn to sleep in regular beds compared to cribs and getting rid of pacifiers and sinus infections, but I'm here. I'm going to review the minor league play from April 5th to April 12th, first full week of the season for all the levels, the main 4 full season levels. And I thought it was a great week. A lot of really positive takeaways have come out of this. And I have personally put together a hot list for the week. This is something I want to try to do where I don't know if it's always going to be the same number of players, but this week I have 15 players on the hot list, just 15 performances that I feel like are worth shouting out. These aren't necessarily the best prospects in the system, but they're doing things that deserve attention. I guess it's kind of similar to the outside the top 30 segment, but these guys can be inside the top 30, and whether it's just changes or just success at the plate or on the mound or just evaluating a hot stretch and how sustainable it is, that's kind of the idea around here. So I started at the AAA level. I just looked at what everybody's been doing at the plate, went down to low A Delmarva, went back up to AAA, looked at the pitchers, went down to double A, high A, low A, etc. There's no etc. That's it. It ends after A. Anyway, let's get on with the hot list. The first player up is Creed Willems. He's had a lot of time, the most time of any of these hitters on this list, to put in the work, the plate appearances. He has 41 at-bats on the season and is batting .244 with a .919 OPS. He's got 2 doubles and 4 home runs on the season, striking out at only 16.7% of the time and walking around 8.3% of the time. To be fair to him, if we did this episode a day earlier, his numbers would look a lot better. It was an OPS over 1,000. I believe he went 0 for 4 with 2 or 3 strikeouts on Sunday to really put a damper on these numbers a tiny bit, but still fantastic work for a guy who is just, let me look up his age real quick. Don't want to just assume I know the answer. 22 years old, turns 23 in early June. 22 years old, getting his first taste of AAA. He's putting up a 140 WRC plus. I'd say that's pretty good, and honestly, we've talked about this a little bit on the main show, but that's what he's got to do. If he wants to make the major leagues, he's going to have to hit because he's not a good defender at first base. He's not a good defender behind the plate, and maybe those things can improve to a level that is playable, but he's not there yet. So probably looking at a guy that's just going to have to mash and maybe get replaced defensively late in games even at first base or a DH. It's the perfect pairing with the Ryan Mountcastle sans broken foot. You could bring him in for the defensive replacement late in games. But great start for Creed Willems. And we've talked about it before. Even if he doesn't ever make the majors with the Orioles, but considering the rate of injury that is happening at the major league level right now, maybe he does. But even if he doesn't, get that trade value up, because I think the Orioles are going to have to make a trade or two at the deadline to make a push for the playoffs / World Series. Just looking at the trends, and I know that strikeout rate and walk rate have not settled in yet, but if he can keep this 16.7% strikeout rate around there, then we're seeing a guy that has just consistently improved the swing and miss in his game as he's gone up the ladder. And unlike Ryan Mountcastle, who has done similar things at the major league level, he's not sacrificing power for it. And in fact, he's improving the power as well. So getting more selective. The walk rate is probably never going to be amazing. It seems like it's between 8 and 10% since 2023. So that's right in line as well. Good job, Creed Willems. Next up on the list is Ethan Anderson, another 22-year-old catcher in the system, this one playing at Double-A. Talked a lot about him last year where he got off to a actually pretty good start. So let's take this pretty good start into context and cross our fingers. But last year started at High A. First week, two and a half weeks were really good, and then he dropped off. I think we found out he was dealing with an injury. Eventually he came back, put up some solid numbers, but had a really, really good Arizona Fall League and comes back repeating Double-A after 80 plate appearances there in 2025 with his first 30 plate appearances with the Bay Sox this year, have him batting .429 with an OPS of 1171, which is a .216 WRC plus. Obviously, unsustainable BABIP over 500, but the good news is he's walking more than ever. Obviously, unsustainably high, 26.7%, but that will level out to probably 15+% maybe, and the strikeout rate right in line with what he's been throughout his career outside of 20 plate appearances in High A in 2024 at 16.7%. That's really good. Isolated power is pretty strong so far at 143. He has only one extra base hit. It is a home run, but he's getting on base. He's hitting for average with some luck involved. He's stolen a base. Don't know why he's attempting 2 steals, but he was successful in one of them. And he is a guy that actually could potentially stick at catcher and also at first base, maybe corner outfield. The bat doesn't necessarily have the same amount of pressure on it as a Creed Willems does. But if he could be a solid backup catcher, third catcher that can also play first base, corner outfield, that's a really valuable guy to have, especially when you have Adley and Basayo as your starters in the majors. We just saw Adley go in the IL with an ankle injury, and Maverick Hanley gets pulled up. You feel a whole lot better about things if you could pull up a guy like Ethan Anderson to be that backup. And maybe he hits enough where it's like when Adley comes back, he could stick around and play other positions, be that third catcher. But nice to see Ethan Anderson get off to another strong start this season. Next up is a really fun one. Talked about him on the main show last week. That would be 21-year-old Thomas Sosa, who got off to a blistering start. Well, that is continued. The extra bases didn't continue to the extent that they did that opening weekend, but over the first week and a half, 30 plate appearances again, exactly the same as Ethan Anderson. He's batting .357 with a 1079 OPS, which is a 170 WRC plus. Only walking 6.7% of the time, but only striking out 16.7% of the time. And that part is really key because the lowest strikeout rate of his career in full season ball is 47 games in High A last year, where he struck out 24.1% of the time. So if he's making that much more contact, that is an amazing sign, because when he does make contact, it's very loud. He hits the ball very hard. He's got 4 doubles, a triple, a homer, and a stolen base in those 30 plate appearances. And he just looks more, again, the eye test is not much, but he looks more comfortable at the plate. He looks more confident, and the results are there. So if that can continue, this is a guy that can really just race up our top 50 prospect list. Speaking of which, it's going to be very interesting when our first big update comes in 2 or 3 weeks here, because I'm being very aggressive and fluid with my list. I've talked about how my top 10 is wide open. Honestly, there's a lot that's wide open in my list. It's going to be a lot different. And this is typically the case. I feel like first big update after games are being played, after an off season of development. Sure, we get that preseason list out there with more data, more reflection on the season as a whole. But this May 1st update is where we can actually see changes that have been made, improvements that have been developed. So it's going to be exciting. And especially with Pistachio, Beavers, looks like Chase McDermott off the list. Anthony Nunez will be on there, but it'll be his last month on the list, if assuming he doesn't get sent down, which they'd be crazy to do so. So I'm excited to see what we put together with that. Next up on the list, another Double-A player, Anderson De Los Santos. A lot of love being given to him from us, from Nick. A great article on the Substack. Really, really recommend reading that. Also, in a Dynasty Baseball email from Dynasty Dugout, he was listed as a guy that you should pick up if you're in a Dynasty League with 450 up to 450 minor leaguers rostered, which to me that says they think he's one of the top 450 prospects in the league or roundabouts there, which would put him as a top 15 prospect in an average major league farm system. That's pretty high praise. A guy that we've talked about a lot over the years. He was one of the early signees. He's now he's 22 years old, only 22 years old, like 5-6 years later. But he's starting to establish his game. I think he's actually starting to come into his own. He finished really, I'm going to pull this up because I remember him finishing last year really strongly. Let's see if I can, how quickly I can do this. June 13. Yeah, last year in 2025, from June 13 on to the end of the season, he actually batted .256 with an 797 OPS, which was a 140 WRC plus. Was walking 15% of the time, striking out 19% of the time, 152 ISO. Yeah, mea culpa. We missed this. And like I said, I did recognize towards the end of the season that his numbers were really strong at the end of the season. That is a lot longer than I expected it to be. Yeah, that's a really good run. We should have caught that, but hey, we're catching it now. And better late than never. Yeah, his final, this is probably where I caught it. His final 2 games of the season saw him go 4 for 4 in the second to last game of the season with a triple, and then 2 for 5 in the final game, or 2 for 3, with the hit by pitch in a walk in the final game of the season. And I was like, dang, finished strong. And then his final line was 230 batting average with a 721 OPS and a 121 WRC plus. And I thought, you know what? That's actually pretty good for a 21-year-old. But with the context I just gave, all the way from June 13th to 140 WRC plus, that means, yeah, that is a really, really strong second half. And it actually makes me more confident that these latest developments are for keeps, are good. And as Connor McGovern in the Discord said, he was there Sunday. Of course, it's the game where he went 0 for, I think his first 0 for of the season, but he did walk. That he's a very slow player, so you're not going to get a speedy guy where he's stealing. He actually stole 19 bases in high A last year. That's crazy. But I don't think that's the guy he's ended up going to be, and that's okay. Hits the ball hard, and the swing and miss has really, really improved. He's walking 32.3%, 31 plate appearances, by the way, in 8 games. But he's striking out only 16.1%. If he can sustain a strikeout rate under 20%, and it was 21.8% last year, and like I said, it was around 19% following that June 13th date where he started his really strong run, that's very playable. And he's only 22, which is still mind-blowing to me. He can play third base, pretty solid over there. He can play first base. So right now he's batting .300 with an OPS of 1148. Again, I said 32.3% walk rate. That's not sustainable. 200 WRC plus. The ISO is around 300 right now. He's got 3 doubles and a home run, 10 walks to 5 strikeouts. A lot of this is unsustainable, but it's just, this is his first taste of Double A. He did not get that late season bump to Double A. He just went from High A, where he ended really strong, gets the next jump the next year, and instead, not like a Creed Willems, who typically always, until this year in Triple A, typically took his lumps at that next level. At least so far, Anderson De Los Santos hit the ground running. He will be, I'm confident, in our top 50 where he had fallen off. I think we're going to right some wrongs with Anderson De Los Santos. Next up on the hot list is Ike Irish, who a lot has been said about how, really solid hitter, hits the ball hard, but way too many ground balls. Well, apparently that is something that, again, this is happening in spring training, like eyes on spring training, eyes from off-season stuff. Like, seemingly that is less the case these days. He's hitting the ball in the air more often, and early numbers say that's looking like it's true. Over 24 plate appearances, he's batting .333 with a .988 OPS, 182 WRC plus, 12.5% walk rate, 16.7% strikeout rate, .238 ISO, 2 doubles and a home run. Also has a stolen base thrown in there, but just looks really solid at the plate, and as he should. He's that first-round pick that is going to have to live on the bat because he's like a first base corner outfielder, maybe catcher in a pinch, but he really has not played there. I don't know if he's played a single game there this year. No, he hasn't. He's been strictly first base and right field so far. So catcher might be out for him, and I think that's perfectly fine. Focus on the bat, rise him up the system pretty quickly, and whether it's as a guy you want in Baltimore or a guy you want to headline a big trade, I think Ike Irish, he's in the running for that number one prospect. Now that Sayo and Beavers are graduated, we will see what happens there. But Ike Irish, great start to the season. And what I liked that I saw when I was watching Frederick games, so much fun to watch Frederick right now, by the way, was that I saw him multiple times where he would score a run or strike out, or I don't know if strikeout is the word, but I've seen multiple times where as he's going back to the dugout, he's talking to the person who's about to come up to the plate, giving him some pointers, things he noticed, and especially with some of the off-the-field things we've been hinted at with him that were coming out of the draft, it might have allowed him to fall to Baltimore. At least a good sign that he's being a good teammate and trying to show some leadership and some camaraderie there.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Next up on the hot list is Victor Figueroa, a guy who was acquired from the San Diego Padres in the Ryan O'Hearn, Ramon Laureano trade and just was god-awful once he came over. Actually, 88 WRC plus, but man, the numbers were not pretty. It was a 182 batting average, 583 OPS, 19% walk rate, 29% strikeout rate, and for this big power hitter that he was made out to be, 065 ISO with only 3 doubles and a triple in 99 plate appearances. So that was very disappointing. But he is another guy that I've seen a little bit higher on outside lists as far as Orioles prospects at the moment. Apparently he is a big boy. Well, apparently. There's no apparently about it. He's 6'5", 240 pounds, 22 years old. But apparently he's got big boy power and a chance to really get to it, even as just strictly first base prospect. There's a chance that the bat could be good enough to make it. So he started back in High A, and obviously going from Aberdeen to Frederick. We haven't even seen Frederick play their home opener yet. That will be tomorrow night. But in the new league, but same level, he got off to a great start. He's only played in 5 games, 20 plate appearances, so not as much of a regular number as the previous guys, but he's batting .421 with a 1345 OPS, 270 WRC plus, 5% walk rate, 15% strikeout rate, 474 ISO. I mean, he came out and he's made up for lost time on the power front. He's got 3 home runs already for the Keys, and I'm excited to see how this goes. I don't think he's going to be at Frederick long if he's going to be blasting the ball like this, especially 22 years old. Yeah, he can move up to Double A pretty soon. Let's go down to Low A now and talk about Kyle Hightower, who, another guy from that same exact trade, who came over and did not do particularly well post-trade, but it wasn't bad either. 20 years old last year at the time of the trade. He just turned 21 in late March. But post-trade, he came over batted .250 with a .658 OPS for the Shorebirds. It was actually a 102 WRC plus, so maybe I'm being a little bit too hard on him and have been in the past, but 10.3% walk rate, 21.6% strikeout rate, not much power, .071, had 7 stolen bases in 9 attempts, 3 doubles, a homer, so held his own up the middle. He returns there this season and has got off to just a ridiculously hot start. He's batting .458 thanks to a .579 batting average per ball in play, rocking a .980 OPS and a .177 WRC plus, only walking 4% of the time, striking out 20% of the time, 25 plate appearances, even less power at .042. But again, I'm happy to see this kid get off to a good start. He's got a really good glove up the middle, shortstop, second base. Yeah, I think as things level off, if he's going to obviously hit for a lower batting average, but he's going to walk more. He's probably going to hopefully start getting into a little bit more power this year. Just nice to see these guys that struggled post-trade last year come over and have a decent start just to set themselves up nicely for a first full year in the organization. And the last hitter on the list, one of the more exciting developments for me, is DJ Layton, also of the Delmarva Shorebirds. Another up-the-middle player, 19 years old. It's a guy that last year didn't get much of a read on, to be honest with you. He played in the FCL, got in 40 games, but a lot of it was leg injuries, and he was on the team but didn't actually hit the IL. Pinch running, we've talked about. 135 plate appearances, stole 10 bases in 11 attempts, but he batted .183, .596 OPS, which was good for an 85 WRC plus at 18 years old. Walked 18.5% of the time, struck out 27.4% of the time, no power, .048 ISO, had those 5 doubles, and just honestly had no idea what to make of that. I assumed that he was going to repeat the FCL and hopefully just be healthy and get a midseason promotion at some point. But no, he comes out here. He starts with Delmarva. He's played in 8 games so far. He's got 30 plate appearances. He's batting .375 with an OPS of .1083. Walking 20% of the time, striking out 36.7% of the time, but it's a .208 ISO thanks to a double and 2 triples. He's got 2 stolen bases. And he's playing shortstop and center field and second base, so just up the middle. Yeah, the defense is not great yet, but again, he's just 19 years old, playing an up the middle defensively, showing improvement at the plate, and just the confidence that the organization, this is where the organization is speaking to us without speaking to us, because God knows they don't do that, but just showing us that, hey, this kid is made adjustments that we think put him on this caliber where if you're just following last season, it doesn't make much sense, but you see it. If you watch him play, he's very, very athletic, very exciting, to be honest with you. The Professor Layton is back in the lab. Can't wait to see how he does this season. Let's move over to the pitching. Levi Wells is going to kick things off on the pitching side of the hot list. 101 points, 24 years old. Obviously one of the big three when it comes to the AAA Orioles prospects coming into this season with Trey Gibson and Nestor Herman. Still obviously very high on those guys who got off to poor starts, but it's just small sample, new season. It's so hard to get a read on things this early on, but Levi Wells is off to a spectacular start. He has a 1.26 ERA over 14 and a third innings. He's gotten 3 starts. It's a 2.35 FIP to go along with it. The strikeout percentage is 26.3, which is up from 17.8 in his limited time at AAA to end last season. He had 20 and 2/3 innings at the end of the 2025 season there, and the walk rate is down to 7% from 14.4%. Things are more in line and actually better than his 2025 in AA Chesapeake, where he really popped on the scene with the stuff metrics and improved control. For AA last year, he had a 24.5% strikeout rate and an 8% walk rate, so he's really improved in that area. He's really angling for the first starting pitching prospect that's going to come up. That's not named Brandon Young, Dean Kramer. Those aren't prospects. Cade Povich, but those guys are improved as well. But Levi Wells trying to leapfrog Erman and Gibson when it comes to getting to the majors first, whether it's as a starting pitcher in a game where you need a starter, a doubleheader, whatever. We've talked about this so many times. Or if it's just a guy that, hey, we need an arm. Let's just bring up the most talented arm we have right now available. Levi Wells could be that guy. You would expect his strikeout numbers to be better considering the level of his stuff, but who knows, man. As long as there's better command there, I think you're going to see him be a guy that can start and give you 5 to 7 innings. He's sustaining, just saw something on a Discord this morning about how he's sustaining this year his 96 mile per hour average fastball into the 6th inning in his last start. So Levi Wells, let's go, you psychopath. Next up on the list, we're going to go to Double-A and talk about Sebastian Gongora. 6'5" left-handed pitcher, 24 years old, was a senior sign, I want to say, out of the 11th round in 2024 out of Louisville. But a guy who has certainly had strikeout stuff, great extension, really solid changeup. Like, he's got the stuff to be a left-handed starting pitcher in the organization. Showed flashes last year between low and high A, but starts this year up in Double-A, makes his debut, gets 2 starts in this past week, ends up throwing 9.9 1/3 innings to a 1.93 ERA, striking out 13 batters, not walking a single one. So that is going to be key because he had a 12% walk rate combined between both A-ball levels last season and a 28.8% strikeout rate, which is pretty darn good. Well, it's 38.2% to 0%. Obviously, the walk rate's not going to sustain itself, but if he can stay under 10% walk rate, I think you're going to see some really good things from Sebastian Gongora this season. Next up is Micah Ashman. Yeah, there were a lot of successful relievers throughout the organization this week, but I wanted to shout out Micah Ashman on the hot list because he had 3 games where he pitched 2 innings each game, so 6 innings total, a 1.50 ERA, 39.3% strikeout rate, 10.7% walk rate. Basically, he struck out 11 batters to walking 3 in those 6 innings. He just looks like such a tough at-bat for any lefty. Maybe the perfect loogie if that was still a thing, but I don't know. There's something about his fastball that I think it's going to work at the major league level. And Tyson Neighbors also started slow but really bounced back later in the week. Struck out the side on Sunday evening. Joe Glassy looks really good out of the bullpen in Frederick. Zane Barnhart looks good in Chesapeake. Gerald Agondo. Yaki Rivera looks yucky, nasty. His slider is really, really good. So a lot to be excited for on the bullpen front. Now let's get to the real heart of the issue. The hottest of the hot on this week's hot list. What the hell? Frederick's pitching. Joseph Giroux, 21 years old, will turn 22 next week. Makes his professional debut. Goes 6 innings, giving up 1 hit and a walk with 9 strikeouts. Then comes back in his second game in high A and goes 7 innings, giving up 6 hits, 1 of which is a home run, but no walks and 3 strikeouts. He's too good for this level, but there probably is room for him in Double-A, but especially with all the injuries they're having, but I think they're going to wait just a little bit. Maybe May 1st, we see him and the next guy on this list move up there because, yeah, he's too good for this level. He can be just right in the zone and dominate right now because his stuff is really good. He's holding at 95 mile per hour fastball with just a crazy good changeup, a solid slider, and he's just got so much extension and a weird arm angle where it's like these guys don't really have much of a chance right now with what he's giving them. It's very exciting. I think between him and, JT Quinn, the next guy on the list, these are the 2 highest caliber arms that the Orioles have brought in via the draft. And, man, they've already shown that they've got 2 really high caliber arms here that could be top 5 prospects in the system by the end of the year. Let's go over to Quinn now, who also made his first 2 professional starts. In his first, he gave up 1 run in 4 1/3 with 6 strikeouts to 2 walks. And in his second start, in 4 2/3, struck out 10 batters, walked 0, and only gave up 2 hits. Overall, he's got a 1.00 ERA in 9 innings. And this stuff is absurd from this right-hander, and I couldn't be more excited. I'm ready to order my Quinn jersey already. He's bumping 98, 99 average on his fastball, which is crazy, especially this early in the season, this early in his career. But that's not all he's got. He's got a really good slider. He's got the stuff. And, man, you can really dream on this arm. Between him and Giroux, one of these guys is going to pop off like crazy this year. I'm trying to keep myself in check a little bit because it's so early, so small sample. But just this stuff alone without the results, very, very good. Last 2 guys, we're going to go down to Delmarva. First, we're going to look at Kiefer Lord, who we liked a lot coming out of the 2023 draft. 3rd-round pick, which is really high for the Orioles when it comes to pitching. Pitched 2 innings, then had to go under the knife. Didn't come back until very late, very, very late last season. Gotten 7 2/3 innings pitched to a 3.52 ERA in Delmarva. Returns there. He's 24, but he hasn't pitched in so long that I feel like other than the Rule 5 40-man roster type of implications, it's not as big of a deal for him. I think he'll probably move pretty fast, but I also don't know what their strategy is going to be. If they want him to remain a starting pitcher, they might try to go slow where he only pitches in low and high A this year. But if they want to ramp him up, I feel like they could get him to Double-A by the year's end. Anyway, he started 2 games in the first week and a half of the season, and he's got a 5.63 ERA over 8 innings, but 13 strikeouts to only 2 walks. In his last game, he pitched 3 2/3 innings. He came out with a blister or a cut, something on his finger, but man, he was dealing. He had 10 strikeouts, no walks, only given up 2 runs, 1 earned on 4 hits. Before that, I think this guy, as he gets comfortable, gets more in the swing of that routine, and hope the blister's not going to keep him out long or cut, whatever it was. But yeah, he's got a 5.63 ERA, but a 1.35 FIP, 2.32 xFIP. Stuff looks electric. It's the stuff we liked coming out of that draft, just 2 years late. Sometimes these injuries are terrible, but as long as these guys can come back and be the guy they were before they got hurt, it's not the end of the world. And last guy I want to talk about on this hot list idea, which has turned into a really long podcast. What are you going to do? More content for you guys. Braden Sloan, left-handed pitcher out of this past 2025 draft, 17th round out of TCU, left-handed reliever, 22 years old, striking out 77% of batters in his early professional career. He had not pitched in the minors professionally until this season, where he's gotten in 3 games, pitched 4 innings. He's got 10 strikeouts to 1 walk, hasn't given up a hit. His changeup's absurd. He definitely should be up, if he's, especially because it seems like he's pure reliever at this point. Get him up to Frederick. Get him up to Bowie. Chesapeake. This guy could really move fast as a relief prospect with his changeup from the left side. A lot to like here. I really, really enjoy watching these pure relief prospects develop, and I hope the Orioles continue this trend lately, because as we're seeing with Anthony Nunez in the Orioles bullpen, who's already like one of their most relied on high relievers, and for good reason, it's fun. It's really fun to have these types of guys, specialists. So that'll do it for this week's weekly minor league podcast. Let me know what you thought of the hot list. If it's too long, if it's too dumb, if you just want to hear about more guys, quick hits, I don't know. Let me know. But it's been fun for me. As always, thank you for being a patron. Thank you for listening.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.